Let's talk just now about the structure in this society, what it has implanted in our mind that we actually struggle to break free. When we cross several disciplines like psychology, psychoanalysis, philosophy, sociology, economy, after all, social sciences and humanities, we see that there's no separation between the external and the internal. There is no separation between what we think. Of course, it depends the schools and it varies, but we can say that in general, the what is commonly accepted in social sciences and humanities, science of the human beings, of the mind and the society, is that both of them are intertwined. So what we have to see is that breaking free is essentially breaking free from stories, breaking free from what we have been told, breaking free of other people's ideas and projections. When we talk about other people's ideas and projections, we have to know that these are not everybody have these ideas, have these things that comes into their mind because of other people. I would say hurt people hurt people. What does that mean? This is actually a common sense, like or it's a general sense that is well studied in psychology. What it means, in essence, that it means that we see the world through our own programming, for the programming that goes beyond human capacity to see itself. As we see as well, like there is a famous quote who says that a knife cannot cut itself. We can't see ourselves unless we have appropriate mirror. This I talk about in another video. But just for this video, the point is, if we want to break free from ideas, if we want to break free, essentially, the message is breaking free from what we say to ourselves, like breaking free from what we think reality is. That is a big step that nobody can take the full extent of that step, because it would mean that we will go crazy. We can't walk around and, like Descartes was doing, starting to adopt everything which is in our world. But in fact, we could actually do that, because essentially everything that I see around me, the perception that I have of these things, are actually not what these things are. For example, I could look at this river from this side and I would say, okay, this river is this, but I can go just a few meters down there and then the river will appear different. This is like what we could see in the philosophy of perception and also in cognitive psychology. Bias. Bias. Human beings, we are in ourselves bias. The fact that we are incarnated inside a body, a single body in flesh that reacted to the environment is in a sense the same definition than being actually a bias. We are a bias in ourselves. So this way of looking reality has not always been the case before. Like it starts just from, at least in the Western philosophy, we can see it with Merleau-Ponty, with Spinoza as well. So the idea that there is a reality out there that is the truth, and I could grasp this truth, like Platon will say, with the allegory of the cavern, like the allegory of the cavern, the cave. What is the allegory of the cave? Is that it's supposed to say that we are in a state of ignorance in a cave, and by acknowledging the truth, we can get out of the cave and look at the sun. The thing is that if somebody take our hands inside a cave, there's the prisoners, and if we force the prisoners to get out the cave, they will get blind by the sun. The lightness of the sun will make them blind. This truth could literally destroy them. So this is why there's often a real documented phenomenon in psychology, also in things like cosmetic surgery, for example. They say that in cosmetic surgery, people could want a certain thing, and even when they get these things done, the internal belief is still going on. So the reality did not shift, even if the physical made it a bit less intense. So in other words, it's well established now. Actually, it's one of the most grounded theses that we can see in modern philosophy, in the Western world, but as well in philosophy, like we who are studying the mind really closely, like Buddhism or also ancient Egypt philosophy, when they see the mind as the construction of the reality around us. The mind is God. So when it comes to breaking free from stories, from breaking free from, it actually means breaking free from certain perceptions, breaking free of cognitive habits that we have. If we look at more in a psychological lens, what are cognitive habits is actually, for instance, there is a boat now coming at us. Have a cognitive habit related to the concept of boat. This is the level of difficulty breaking free means. You see, if I see this boat, I see a boat coming. Do you know how hard it is to not see it, to not see this shape, to not see this manifestation in the reality, this shape in the reality, to not see it as a boat? And this is essentially what we are asking ourselves to do when we want to break free, when we want to set ourselves free from certain perception that gives us pain. Because essentially, everything around us could be questioned. Everything around us have a shaky ground that we could shake, but we don't have enough of a lifetime to pass to question every single thing we see around us. Often we just take a shortcut. We are like, all right, we collectively agreed that this form of manifestation is a world is called a boat, so I will call it a boat. And actually I don't have any suffering around it, or so why would I bother to trying to look at it more closely and realize that I could perceive this object in a different way? So again, there's no point. It doesn't mean that the boat is really a boat. It doesn't mean that it's not because I don't question the association of what I see with this concept that this is necessarily true. It's just a comfort. It's exactly what we do with language. With language, we all agree to communicate in a society. We all agree on certain terms and the significance of these terms. So we kind of agree into kind of shared reality that actually can cause also a lot of problem. We can see that in conflicts, for example. Often people interpret words in a different way because they assign it a different reality, and this reality also impact them in different ways. It gives them different triggers. It gives them different aspects of the reality that they are not yet ready to question. So, once again, to free ourselves from cognitive habits to habit of perceptions in a more philosophical way, we see that we have to start to question the perceptions that hurt us, that make us feel hurt. So, in a more psychological way, or in a more new development way, certain people call them replacing negative belief with positive beliefs. We can simplify it this way when we talk about reconfiguring the signification of the reality around us to make it less hurtful toward us. So when we look at positive belief and negative belief, in essence, it's again the same thing. Like, there is no ultimate reality that we are reaching for. A negative belief is not more true, or more false than a positive belief. This is where we go beyond self-development, of course, and we go into philosophy. we go into philosophy of perception. We go into cognitive psychology. So, in essence, anyway, we live in a world where we are using a lot of things we don't know fully. I use a computer, I don't know fully how it functions. I don't know the true functioning of this machine. But does it cause me pain? Not really. So why should I bother to deconstruct, to try to understand it further? So this is the first step, replacing negative belief with positive belief if we want to break free. But there is another way as well that is more difficult to sustain, because it's a state of what we could call as well in Zen philosophy, for instance, thinking of non-thinking, ishiryo thinking, as a state where there is no, the mind is not thinking positive or negative. It's really difficult to grasp when this is why a lot of these ancient texts emphasize the practice before the reading or the thinking. Because this state of mind can't be achieved without a sitting posture. In other words, it's like if we will describe being drunk to somebody who never took alcohol. So, breaking free is, first of all, as we said, realizing that what I see, what I think, what I feel, like Morpheus said in the Matrix, is just electric signal in our brain, and we call it truth. That's the first thing to realize when we work on this. So the second thing is to either replace a positive belief or a negative belief with a positive belief, or to go beyond these both things through a set of techniques that will help us to achieve that state. A state of non-judgment, non-believing, no thought. A state where we don't think. It's even hard to put it like this when we don't think. It's just a state of, what we say roughly, non-duality or something like that. But once again, this concept, this physical concept, is not like a usual one we could we could sometimes see in Western philosophy, where we just read a book and we understand with the mind what we have to do, what the person is talking about. But this concept of non-duality, of non-thinking, ishiryo, in Zen Buddhism is not possible to achieve without a sitting practice. Not possible to, it's not achieved, but not possible to apprehend very well from an intellectual standpoint. So, the other thing is, after these two steps, we can also look at what I also describe in other videos that I link below, how to deconstruct meanings. Because as we see, freeing our mind is not just a personal affair, it's a collective affair as well. For instance, when I decided 10 years ago to just live my life as a free mind, after graduation, I was saying, this is what I wish to myself. I'm retiring from this society. So, whatever goal, whatever goal or life goal we have, or ambition that we want to achieve, in order to achieve them, they will have the internal belief, but also the societal belief. And the societal belief, for instance, will reinforce certain things to make sure that these values, these collective values, are harder to break free from, because freeing our mind is actually a process, a conversation between us and the surrounding, because we live in interdependence. We don't live by ourselves. When we free certain belief in ourselves, it needs to be reflected in the external things around us. Will reflect that change, will reflect that new state of belief or consciousness. And for example, when we have certain beliefs in society that actually contradict what we're trying to do inside, this is where a will work will start. For example, whatever the goal you have, the life goal you have, this is a tricky thing to look at, because in this neoliberal world, a lot of self-development, this industry of healing yourself by yourself, makes us believe that we just have to work on ourselves and things will appear. And the collective, the interdependence, the community work, this is also really evident in work like Rest is Resistance and a lot of activist spaces, anarchist spaces, LGBTQEF plus spaces, where they take into account structure that goes beyond our own individuality.